To discuss the significance of the New York primary, I'm joined by Nayyera Haq. She's a former top official in the Obama White House. Why is New York important this time around when years past it's by this time it's pretty much decided?
Right, by this time pretty much everything's been decided, and we've had concession speeches and we're all looking at the general election. So it's a very interesting election year where New York seems to matter, not least because three of the remaining candidates have claimed New York as a home base in some way. You have Bernie, born and raised in Brooklyn, Hillary, senator from Brooklyn, of course Trump with all of his real estate in Manhattan. So it's taken on a very psychological importance, more so than the actual numbers. So if you look at the mathematical side of the picture, New York is just the next in what is already a largely decided campaign.
How about those actual numbers? Because the more Donald Trump picks up delegates, and if he doesn't hit the number, there's still all this talk about a convention that's contested, Ted Cruz trying to get delegates on the side here and there. How is this thing going to play out on the Republican side? And then we can talk about the Democrats.
Sure. Well, the Republican side is certainly a bit messier. You have three candidates, and one of them who only Governor Kasich, who's only won one state, but still insists that he's going to stay in. So he pulls a couple of votes here and there. So it's not an easy 50-50 split or election between the two of them. And they are a much tighter race on the Republican side. And also more, I think the party is also really divided on how they want to go. So even if Trump comes out with a majority of delegates, which he may in the next two primaries, he's pretty close. You still have party leaders and the party elected officials and those super delegates who are going to try to play some game in which they can keep this in the establishment lane.
And the Democratic side, it looks as though Hillary's going to, if she wins here, it's going to be sort of insurmountable, correct?
Yeah, so Bernie has really energized a new segment of the population in a similar way that Trump has done on the right. Bernie has brought in a lot more people who were independent and brought them into the left. The challenge he faced in New York is it's a closed primary. If you are not already registered as a Democrat, you are not able to suddenly, a week before, change your affiliation. So Hillary has a much stronger operation in New York from her two elections that she ran as senator, and she's already ahead in the delegate count. So those are the two pieces that worked against Bernie. Hillary is predicted to win by double digits, but even if it's a tight, narrow margin of a couple of points, she has enough of a delegate lead that Bernie's just not going to be able to make it up, especially with the upcoming states having large minority voters that tend to go for Hillary.
I'll talk to you a little bit more about minority voters in just a minute, but unity is always the big word you hear every 4 years, every 8 years, and we're hearing it on the Republican side. Everybody's got to unify, Democratic side, but how tough is that in this election cycle?
It's really difficult, this election cycle. By about this time in the Obama-Hillary race, Hillary was already ramping down her campaign and talking about going ahead and leading against, unifying the party against John McCain. You did similarly on the Republican side last time with Mitt Romney. Now you have both parties where you have some real ideological differences between the candidates. And Kasich refuses to give up till a convention. He's arguing for a contested convention. We haven't seen one of those in about 30 years. And you have Bernie, who insists that this is not just about the numbers for him. He's pushing a message and he's pushing a movement that he hopes will change the face of the Democratic Party.
Well, let's talk about changing the face of America, because Maylee just talking about Asian Americans, how they may factor into this election. Muslims, obviously, I would think would be pretty activated with some of the comments from some of the candidates, and Mexican Americans. How do you see all of that playing out?
Well, that'll be particularly important as you see going forward when you have California with high minority Latino populations. It was significant in the South with African American populations, and New York City highly diverse in general with Asian Americans and with Muslim Americans. They tend to, and particularly with the rhetoric coming in from the Republican side, particularly this election, will be voting Democrat. The Clinton brand, and Hillary in particular, have a long-standing reputation with these communities. So Bernie tends to activate younger voters, college-educated, white voters. So remains to be seen if he can actually bring in any of the minority voters. But so far, those have gone the way of Hillary.
It's been fascinating to watch, and I bet you it's much more fun watching it from the sidelines than being there doing this. Right?
Absolutely.
All right, thanks so much.